The repayment of $605 million of debt this year, combined with these fiscal guardrails, puts Bermuda on a clear and credible path to eliminate net debt within a decade. By 2028-29, our debt to GDP ratio is projected to fall below 19%. Now, this is a really big deal because the fiscal responsibility target set a maximum target of 50% during the pandemic. We are now expected to be next year by just 19%, falling below the 20% level, which is something where most AAA rated countries find themselves. That is a transformation of Bermuda's financial position, and it is the direct result of responsible choices that have been made consistently over 9 years. This budget also delivers the largest tax cut for workers in Bermuda's history. No worker and no business will pay more in payroll tax. Workers earning $48,000 will save $120 a year. Workers earning $96,000 will save $840 a year. Those earning $120,000 will save $660 a year. This means that since this government took office in 2017, a worker making $48,000 pays 95% less in payroll tax than they did under previous administration when payroll tax on workers reached the highest level in history. And this is a consistent pattern of reductions that this government has made ever since the first budget that we delivered in February 2018, up until this one 8 years later. The 2026-27 budget also includes a record investment in Bermuda's infrastructure, the largest planned capital investment since 2008-2009, a $182 million capital program, which we are really unveiling. The Minister of Public Works and Environment will share the specific details of the capital works funded in his budget during this press conference in the current days, but it also funds many things for other ministries. A significant increase in funding for capital funding for education, a significant increase for capital funding for housing, not only to build new housing, but also to renovate existing dwellings, existing properties, upgrade infrastructure, making sure that people have access to steady water supplies, and to ensure that they are upgraded, whether it comes to lights and other facilities where they live. On the matters related to the cost of living, this government is continuing its work to address affordability for Bermudians. We do know that the Minister of Home Affairs has an affordable Bermuda agenda, which laid out a number of things for the Minister of Finance to do, and we have followed through by eliminating the remaining 20% of customs duty on fuel for electricity generation, which would mean that over the last 2 years, the government has completely eliminated the tax on electricity. This saves the average household $375 a year. We're also reducing or eliminating customs duty on more essential goods and making a further 10% reduction in private car licensing fees effective the 1st of April. In the Ministry of Finance, the key priorities include advancing tax framework reform. It is important to note that we did state that we are going to upgrade our data collection as the country follows the recommendations of the Fiscal Responsibility Panel and the Tax Reform Commission to look at the implementation of a broad-based personal income tax that can replace some of our existing taxes, which increase the cost of living and the cost of doing business. In addition to that, we're going to progress pension reform, and also we're going to re-impanel the Debt Management Committee to guide the next phase of our debt reduction strategy, that strategy to eliminate our debt within a decade. Additionally, inside of this budget, it provides a one-time 10% pension increase for all public sector retirees. This is the first increase since 2014 and will be legislated later in the year to take effect from the 1st of April 2026. And this uplift is only possible because the Public Service Superannuation Fund has been stabilized with the change that we made last year and is now being managed on a stronger and more responsible footing. While the government is not yet in a position to return to automatic cost of living adjustments, we know that this one-time increase is needed and is well-deserved relief for our public sector retirees. The 2026-27 budget continues to move our island in the right direction, reducing debt, cutting taxes, and investing in the infrastructure and services this country needs. The government also recognizes that there's still much more work to be done. And what we have shown is that we are committed to doing that work and also ensuring prudent fiscal management. When I presented my first budget as premier nearly 8 years ago, Bermuda was burdened by austerity, chronic deficits, and declining confidence. Today, Bermuda's finances are stronger than they have been in a generation. And those are not my words. Those are the words of the Independent Fiscal Responsibility Panel. We did not get here by accident. We got here through responsible choices, through the implementation of a corporate income tax that not everyone supported and that many of our competitors chose not to do. But we got here through responsible choices, and this budget starts the work of ensuring that those choices translate into lasting benefits for Bermudians. In the days ahead, ministers will share specific initiatives funded through the budget, and I encourage all of you to tune in. Prior to taking questions, I would certainly like to acknowledge the recent passing of a legend of the Bermuda media space, Ms. Ceola Wilson, who unfortunately passed away recently. I know that she's been at many press conferences, and I just wanted to, on behalf of the Governor of Bermuda, express our condolences to her family. With that, I'm happy to take questions from you.
Good afternoon, Premier. Thank you for your remarks. Couple questions for you. So there have been calls to provide more targeted relief to the people that need it most in this country. For example, targeted tax credits rather than universal tax across the board for all workers. Did you consider this approach? And if not, why not?
So it's something that we've done in the past. The fact is, Jasmine, that it doesn't work. We do not have a corporate income tax system. So the commenters who are making those statements, yes, it sounds nice, but we do not have an income tax system in which to administer those credits. That's the reality. So we need to get to an income tax system so we can better target. Our tax system is a very blunt instrument. We have tried targeted relief before. We ended up with Auditor General reports and other things, and it's very difficult to administer because we don't have the data on people's income. We don't file them on a regular basis. And so therefore, we have to create new processes for people to apply to different things. It just doesn't work. So I understand why people say that. But the reality is we are targeting. We are making sure that the relief goes to most of the people at the bottom end, whereas the people at the high end are not getting relief, that much relief at all. They're not paying more taxes, but they're not paying significantly less. And so we have targeted those to the lower and middle class persons because middle class people are being squeezed as well. We're doing it across the board. So I understand why people may say it, but it is misinformed commentary because you can't actually do it. When we have a income tax system, which the Tax Reform Commission and also the Fiscal Responsibility Panel has recommended, and if you look at what the Tax Reform Commission says, it does say that you can then better target tax policy. And so it's important to know that we have to get there first. That's why it's important.
Is it something you would support?
It is absolutely something I support. It's something that makes sense. But the reality is we do not have the capacity or the ability to do that because that is not how our tax system is set up. So in other countries like Canada or the US, the United Kingdom, etc., where they have a personal income tax, you can then give tax credits based upon people's overall income. In Bermuda, we cannot do that because we do not have the ability to collect that data.
For right now.
Right now, correct. But the budget statement did say that we're going to implement the recommendations that the Tax Reform Commission said to start to collect that data so that future ministers of finance can model that and implement it because it is the only way that you make our tax system more fair. It makes sense, but we've had to go on that journey. And it's an important point to note, Jasmine, that even when I mentioned income tax 5 years ago, I was attacked for it. Understand, look how far the conversation has moved. That we not only have a fiscal responsibility panel that has recommended it, but we also have a bipartisan tax reform commission made up of representatives from business, labor, both political parties that have also recommended the same thing. So there is now a consensus in the country that this is the direction of travel, and we need to make sure we press ahead with it because that is the way that will break the affordability challenges that we have here. Every single tax in Bermuda is an inflationary tax. There's only so much cutting of those inflationary taxes which we can do before we fix the tax system and deliver on something that can make a meaningful difference. And we are on that path to get there.
Thanks. The opposition, along with economist Craig Simmons, suggests that more money could be set aside to pay off national debt faster due to global uncertainties and other unknowables that could happen. You stated you need to balance the need for lower debt whilst also paying for the services that people need, investing in infrastructure, etc. How and when will you know if the right balance has been struck?
The right balance will vary from year to year. I find it absolutely remarkable that persons will, well, let's put it this way. Clearly the opposition has to say something. They can't say good job on the budget. So clearly they have to say something. I find it absolutely remarkable that when we're paying off $605 billion of debt in one fell swoop, that there's people who say that we should pay more. While at the same point in time, the same people say that we should target more of relief and assistance to other people. They need to make up their minds. As for the comments of Mr. Simmons, I'll leave that where they are.
Some critics might argue the CIT revenues, they're not entirely the PLP government's doing because it's tied to global tax reform. However, it had to be negotiated in such a way that was palatable to our IB sector. The upshot is financial windfall to the country. So who should take the credit for that?
Well, I know that the Progressive Labour Party will never get credit for anything. I know that David Burt will never get credit for anything. But the record stands for itself. While other countries did not implement this, we did. When other people said that we shouldn't implement it, we did. And we worked with the international business community in the exact same way that we worked with the international business community since 2017. I don't need to go back on the record, but I will. In 2017, when we came into office, they said we would not be able to manage this economy. We did. In 2017, when there were Trump's tax changes, when they said it's the end of our international business industry, we managed to go through that. We managed to make through economic substance that came from the European Union. We managed to go through the Code of Conduct group from the European Union. And then we managed to navigate global tax reform, putting in place a tax system that is enabling us to pay off our debts while also investing inside this economy. That is the record of this Progressive Labour Party government, a record of a government that has worked with our international business partners, remaining balanced. So for those people to say that, they are probably now, I don't know, they have to say something. But the reality is that there are many jurisdictions, some of our competitors, who did not make the same choices. We made the choices, work with the international business to deliver something that is going to be beneficial for the country and beneficial not only for the country, but also for the businesses that call Bermuda home. And what are we seeing? We're seeing more companies come to Bermuda, not companies leave.
I would say most of Bermuda's national debt was accumulated under the PLP government, 2008, 2012, under Paula Cox. Do you feel like you're fixing the past government's mistakes?
I would not say that it would be entirely accurate to say that most debt was accumulated during that point in time, but I will also state that we did have a global financial crisis at the time where many people did. I would also say that One Bermuda Lines doubled the debt just in the space of 4 years' time. So we can go into those particular arguments. What I can tell you is that when I came into office in 2017, we did not increase the debt ceiling until we had to pay for Morgan's Point and also a pandemic. All of that much being said, where we find ourselves right now is a government that is positioned to be able to repay those debts while also investing in our economy. And that was done through sound leadership and responsible fiscal choices that we have continued to make year in and year out.
Okay, just a couple of questions. With regard to the contributory pension fund, we are awaiting a position paper on that, which you announced. Are we not kicking the can down the road? You know, your government has 9 years to make a case for reform. Do you regret not being able to take definitive action on that issue?
In a sense, the question of pace on reform is a question that we have to, we can chew gum, walk and chew gum at the same time, but we can't walk, chew gum, juggle, skate, and do all things at the same time. Please remember the Ministry of Finance for the last 2 years has been engaged in a massive corporate income tax implementation, which has taken a significant amount of work, time, energy, and effort. While at the same point in time, we've reformed the Public Sector Superannuation Fund, which is a large and massive $2 billion draw on our finances. So when the thing comes out and it says these accumulated things, that's what it is talking about. So we've managed to fix that big problem as well. So I think it is misinformed commentary to say that we are kicking the can down the road. Insofar as the position paper, we understand the changes. We've already consulted at the exact same time that we consulted on the Public Service Superannuation Fund reform. And we're going to lay out our position and say, this is where we are. And then we're going to move to the space of going towards implementation. So I don't accept that particular criticism. The reality is that this government has made difficult choices before, and we're going to continue to make the difficult choices to fix. And I would hope to have it done before I leave office.
Hey, just lastly, you hold the purse for the government in terms of your other ministries.
The cabinet.
The cabinet, rather.
I just happen to be the Minister of Finance for the time being.
Fair enough. Are there any things on the wish list that just could not make it this time around that you wanted to see in there?
I would have loved to cut taxes more, to be honest. I think that it was responsible to keep a $50 million buffer. I would have liked to, you always want to give more for certain things. Like the amount of additional funding that we've given to healthcare is significant. It is absolutely significant. And the Minister of Health will speak about that when she has her press conference. But I think on balance, we've done a pretty good job. It's not easy being responsible. It's not. Sometimes you want to, make the decisions, cut taxes further, give more things away. But the example that the financial secretary continues to give me, and the reason why I always mention it, is because history is littered with countries that have not been responsible when they've come into windfalls. And I think that at this moment, even though it is not inside of my normal instincts to do so, I felt that it was the right thing to do. And we, as a cabinet, listened to the advice, sat down together, worked with it and said, this is the direction of travel which we're going to do. And it means that it might take a little longer to get to the place of utopia we want to get to. But the reality is that we'll be in a better and stronger financial position as a country, having the space to actually have financial assets, actually having a sovereign wealth fund, actually having certain things that many countries would love to have. And I think that's the right direction of travel for the country.
How confident are you your successor will maintain that fiscal discipline?
I have no doubt that whoever follows me in this role will be committed to this. And I know that if not, they will hear my voice from the back bench.
Thank you, Jasmine. Alvin, you have some questions with you as it relates to the 2026-2027 budget. Yes.
How you doing, Alvin? All right?
The Bermuda Local Association and the Association of Bermuda Insurance and Reinsurance that they welcome the general direction of the budget. In fact, Xavier said that they welcome the $605 million payment, which is possible to grant debt. But they said also that more can be done to do business in Bermuda. How do you respond to this?
I think they will be accurate and correct. And as I said, the choices that we laid out, we wanted to make a further reduction to employer payroll tax, but a further reduction to employer payroll tax would mean that we would not have jail for debt, or I would not have had a credible headroom. A Minister of Finance wants to put forward a budget to the House of Assembly that is credible. We have in there a $50 million buffer in case things do not go well this year, because the most important thing in my estimation to do is to repay the $605 million of debt without having to refinance that and subject the government to that refinancing risk. So I can accept the perspective that the Association of Bermuda Insurers and Reinsurers has, but the other thing of which I will say is that this government has a history of making sure that if we have better than expected financial results, we go back and we continue to cut taxes and return those particular money to the persons. And so as the year goes on, there may be another opportunity to do more. But right now, the data which we have right now, we have to make the prudent and responsible decisions. And so I accept where it is they're saying, but I think that if you look at the fact that this government has said that we are going to follow the recommendations of the Tax Reform Commission, everyone keeps talking about this 7% that the Tax Reform Commission recommended. That is in a waterfall. There are other things that are supposed to come ahead of that, and those are the things of which we are doing. We have had some reductions in employer rates. We had some reductions on the employee side. We'll be able to make more reductions in employer rates as we go forward, because as the budget statement says, we've accepted the recommendation of the Tax Reform Commission. There is just a question of when and how you implement those, but I have no doubt that those things will be implemented over time as conditions improve. We don't have certainty over corporate income tax revenues right now. As we get more certainty, we'll be able to make different and better decisions on a longer term horizon.
How do you respond to a comment from the Minister of Education to the Gazette recently that schools need about 15 or 10 to 20 million, in funding, and she also made reference to the private sector supporting the school system in that regard, for them to bring them up to par.
Also, so I would say this, that the Minister of Education is 100% right, that we need to make sure that we have sufficient investment inside of education. And that is the reason why this budget has increased the capital funding for the Ministry of Education by 71%. 1% in support of the minister's objectives to not only focus on signature schools and parish primary schools, but also the other schools to make sure they have upgraded equipment, upgraded technology, and upgraded facilities. And inside the budget statement, we said that we are going to bring forward a full capital plan for the renovation of schools. We've had those plans, particularly. We have not necessarily had the level of funding which is necessary and required in order to execute those plans. But right now we do have the level of funding that is necessary and to execute those plans. And we will. But the minister is absolutely correct. Resources are needed, but this budget has provided those resources.
Are there any measures in the budget that we may hear from in the days ahead, such as health insurance costs?
Well, there's a question related to health insurance costs versus the provision of health insurance. So remember, health insurance can be cheap, but you can have massive co-pays. So remember, there is the cost of health insurance and then there's the cost of health care. And I think it's important that journalists make sure we know what it is that we're speaking about. On matters that are related to health insurance, we see that one of the waterfalls from the Tax Reform Commission had said waterfall 3 was seniors low-income health support. We funded $50 million on that, which will provide 2,200 seniors, 15% of the senior population in the country, access to free healthcare. That is a start. That is a down payment. That is work that happens. In addition to that, we did say that we're going to expand the matters related under future care, related to the number of preventative doctor's visits, in addition to the annual exam that people can access with a fixed copay while we're rolling out the core benefits package for universal healthcare, which is set to launch in October.
And the last question I have, the opposition in OBS on Friday that there was no mention of voting reform or funding for voting reform. I don't know, can you respond to that?
It would be difficult to respond to everything which the opposition says. As I said, they have to say something. They can't say, oh, it was a good budget. So, I mean, there's 56 hours of debate, and I can assure you that there's money. If I mention every single line item of funding inside of the entire budget, then I would not have been speaking for 2 hours. I would have been speaking for 10. But that is the reason why we have 56 hours of debate, that the opposition gets to choose what gets debated. And if they want to discuss matters related under electoral reform, I am quite certain that the minister responsible for the cabinet office will be happy to respond to them on those particular terms. I mean, one day they should just say, the government did a good job, and, just not even bother with a reply. But I know we won't get that. No problem. Thank you. Anything else?
Right, that concludes our post-budget progress briefing.
Yes, we got another one.
One more budget briefing?
Yes, it is.
You know Jasmine will try to sneak in something else, but go on, Jasmine.
I just wondered, out of interest, this is your last budget presentation. Any key moments as stand out as Minister of Finance or regrets that you might have?
I'll get myself in trouble if I get into regrets. What do you do? Shall I give an honest statement on my regrets? My one regret during this time, I remember it was the budget 3 years ago, where the government made the decision to increase taxes on high earners and to reduce them on low earners. And there was a lot of noise from the business community going back and forth on this. And I remember that I compromised, and instead of having a top headline rate of 15%, which would mean a top effective rate of 13.5%, I set the top rate to 13%, which ended up having the top effective rate at 11.2%. And the only concern I have with that is that the reaction seemed to be no less than if it was 15. And the fact is that if it would have been that higher, then we would have been able to have more investment for schools and healthcare and other things. So I guess the lesson is that you sometimes have to follow through with your plans. And I would say that for the business community, if you want leaders to make sure that they acquiesce and compromise, that your response after people do compromise is muted rather than the same as though if it would have been if you didn't compromise.
Do you see the CIT creating any conflicts going forward?
I think that we're going to be able to manage it. I mean, we have a very robust package of tax credits that is certainly going to stimulate investment into the economy. And we're going to be rolling out more tax credits. We're going to be rolling out housing tax credits and other types of tax credits that are there. So I think that we are going to be able to manage it. I think that it's also important to note that our international business industry is very broad, and it's not just insurance, it's others. And we're going to continue to broaden it because our economic development strategy talks about the diversification of the international business sector. And with our package of tax concessions, we're seeing expansion in other areas such as shipping and others. So that is a good and positive thing. But I have no doubt that we will continue to work with international business. That's what this is about. This is about a partnership. They want to be here. We want them here. They want certain things. We want certain things, and we need to work together. I mean, if we can talk about, when I talk about matters related to sovereignty and other things, where I says we want people, instead of being tenants, to feel as though, they're tenants, and you get what I'm saying? That we're together, rather than, okay, we're here, and you're just along for the ride. Let's all work together and figure out collectively where as a country and a jurisdiction we want to be and how do we get there. And I think that's what we've demonstrated in the implementation of this corporate income tax, something that has not been easy to do. Remember, we had to come up with the legislation, get agreement with the legislation, after come up with the legislation, then stand up an entire agency to collect those funds and to account for them. And we've managed to do all of that and execute it well and successfully. That has to count for something. All right, thank you. Everyone, thank you very much. It has been a joy and a pleasure. Unfortunately, as I said, I am traveling off island. I will be at CARICOM, so I'm going to, newsflash, miss the reply, but I am flying back to make sure that I'm in the house to respond. Thankfully, due to technology, I'll be able to hear every bit of it, and I will certainly be doing that. But ministers will be ready and willing to participate in the debate, and I ask persons to go ahead and to tune in to the budget press conferences, and please feel free to check out all the budget information on the government website, gov.bm. Thank you and have a blessed day.
Bermuda Live on YouTube. Subscribe now.